What is up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Well, we got a lot of things right yesterday and some things wrong. Didn't quite work out. I had a slightly losing day after what looked like after the first set of games was going to be a crushing day. The late night hammer got me. Sheets, how you doing? How was your night last night? And what are your initial thoughts on a fun little, for once, a Tuesday slate that I can get behind?
Well, I had some shots last night because what happened was I went chalky with all that Detroit value that came out. So whenever I go chalky like that, I need to put, in my head at least, I need to put low-owned stacks or low-owned stuff elsewhere. And I had a couple of shots. I did a really off-the-board 1v1 with, I somehow got Levine and Chris Paul together. And that was just one bad free throw away from going to overtime, and that could have gotten me something. But aside from that, I mean, none of my off-the-board stuff kind of got there. I have two comments about yesterday, and I guess one's an overall observation about, I guess, DK in general, is whenever like a whole bunch of news comes out and people spend all this time reacting, other news that comes out sometimes kind of gets overlooked. And I will tell you one bit of news that came out, which I really thought was going to be reacted to a lot differently. After Devin Booker was ruled out, I went, okay, so now I have to go, obviously, just change everything to Michael Bridges. But you know what? He's going to be 70% owned. But you know what? I really have no choice. It's just such a lock in there. And so I did that, and it turns out like he was like not 10% owned or something like that. I think people just because it was after lock, baby.
If the news came out before lock and there wasn't both injuries in Detroit, I think he would have been about 40% owned.
Right.
Maybe 50, maybe even higher.
But even so.
Example. It's so what you did by playing Bridges, what anybody who did by playing Bridges last night is basically what I tried to do last week in the NFL, where when they announced that Josh Jacobs was out, not this most recent week, but the week before, switched everything to DeAndre Washington, or Jalen Richard. I'm pretty sure that everyone else was going to do the same, and literally no one did it. There's just zero people did it. It was, and I think that that's a great way to take advantage of late night situations. I personally didn't even have room to switch much on it because I played six games for the Detroit game.
And that was the problem. And that was the issue.
And it was the issue, but at the same time, it's not like Markieff Morris didn't pay off. It's not like my guys in Detroit weren't doing well except for Thon Maker. That was the one that I did. They did a great job on crunch time. A shout out to Andy Means and I'm sorry, who was it? I think it was Means. Means and JSU, or was it? Yeah, Means and JSU. They were talking, and Means was very adamant about not being that high on Maker. And I decided to play Maker in one of my two big lineups. And overall, like I was below the field, I think, on him by a little bit. But he was, if you could have faded that and Woods and then played the Mikal Bridges in that spot, all of a sudden you're talking about a much different day.
I have one other option, more of a basketball and slash Bobby Eric Brand comment to make last night. So I don't know if there's any real off-the-board futures betting you can make on this because there'd be no line on it right now. It's like so impossible to have a line on this yet. But we spoke a couple of days ago. I don't know whether it's off-show or on-show, where Bobby suggested that Zach LaVine should be an all-star. And for people who decided, who said, well, how can he be an all-star? I mean, if you ever actually watched him play, I mean, the guy's insane. And combined with the fact that the game's in Chicago, I would love to see if someone would give me a price right now on Zach LaVine being the NBA All-Star Game MVP, like right now.
How about that, by the way? I like this. I like that bet. There's a good futures bet that we can find. Somebody hit us up with that one because that sounds like a good bet to me. And I do think he's going to be an all-star. And it's not that I think he's such a spectacular player, but first of all, he's a spectacular fantasy player.
Sure.
He offensively, he is. There are so many similarities between him and Devin Booker as an overall player. And Devin Booker gets all this credit. And somehow Zach LaVine is considered a joke. I don't really understand it. Booker is a better player, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more. They're a lot closer than people think. And I actually don't even know that if it might not end up being a little bit closer than we think. Anyway, we can get into tonight's slate. It's a really interesting one that I've got eyes for pretty much one spot. You have two spots. I understand it. I get the other spot. But let's just get it started with.
Okay. So my overall thoughts on this slate. I think it's a tremendous slate for instruction. Okay, because there are two games that I'm really interested in, and for those of you who've been watching the way I do things, they fit exactly the mold. The high scoring game with high projected players with close spreads, right? So what I try to thinking about when I'm going this review and talking to Bobby is how to make all these things work in a GPP lineup, knowing in my head that they're going to be pretty high owned. So I have to kind of like look through these other games to see where I can find plays to kind of weave in to make all this work. And the other part I want to focus in on as we go through this is this idea of grouping and figuring out which guys you want to play together and how you could differentiate yourself by playing kind of better correlated lineups even within the same type of game. So these are the kind of things that I'm looking at. I do have a couple of notes for individual players I want to ask Bobby about as we go through also. So I guess the first game, let me put up here, is Lakers Indiana. So again, first thing I would comment on is Anthony Davis is always kind of questionable whether he's going to play or not. Obviously, if he doesn't play, then, I mean, LeBron becomes incredibly chalky, incredible play, and, I mean, probably going to have to play him, I guess. But aside from that, again, the first thing I would do here, again, is I would only, if I were going to use either of these guys, I would max one Davis and LeBron. This, to me, is not the type of slate where you can play them both. And aside from that, I really had anybody on the Lakers side. The interesting thing to me is the Sacramento side. I have maybe two questions for you on this one. On the Sacramento side, there's two situations I want to focus in on. One is the Marvin Bagley situation. So he has been, eased back in, but I think he's kind of ready to resume whatever role they want from him. And you have the situation where both him and Rashad Holmes are both kind of on the cheapy side, 5,000, 5,500. And it's not as though Bagley has this minutes limit at this point. It's kind of more of a, Rashad Holmes is kind of playing well minutes limit in a way. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of torn between what to do with these guys. I'll at least do a thing where I do max one of them because they're just kind of subbing in for one another at this point. But another thing I might do is take a shot on one of them, and then maybe exactly one. The idea being if one of them just has more upside from their minutes, if they're playing better, I think that Bagley, they would want him to do better. You know what I mean? He's the future. So I think that if Holmes is having kind of a weaker game, that Bagley has upside from these minutes, and he, I remember from last year, I mean, he has just incredible upside every game. So he's the guy I was going to ask you about. And the other guys from the Sacramento side, again, are the usual guys. Bogdan is that guy who's going to be low owned that has high ceiling. And apparently his injury is kind of, not taking any effect on him in the last couple of games. He was in there for blowout run also against Golden State, but he finally had a great game. So I would also do something like I wouldn't play both Hield and Bogdanovich. I'd have to pick between the two of them probably. But I would consider Bogdanovich as maybe, again, a bad projecting but high upside one-off to kind of think about integrating into my chalkier stacks in the other games.
Yeah, I love Bogdanovich. I think that just seeing him play well once was all.
Oh my God, dude, I'm like the worst.
What?
See what I just did?
What did you do?
I went two different games.
Oh, you jumped over. It's all right. Let's start with Bogdanovich. Let's start with one side. We'll start with the Sacramento side. We'll move over to Charlotte.
Okay.
And then, we'll go from there. You're fine. Bogdanovich, so the minutes have been back there at the 30s. We're good. I think he's actually getting back to being okay. Now, having a good shooting night against Golden State is not what I'm excited about. It's just that he played well. And to be honest, the thing I'm most encouraged about were the 5 assists. I think his assist rate with a more of a balanced lineup with Bagley out there, I don't think you're going to see as much run through Hield. So I think you're going to see a lot just going back to what we saw before, especially if Bogdanovich is healthy, which he does look better. He's my favorite play in this spot in this game. I feel the safest with him. It's really interesting because he's going to be really low owned. And I think that people by the end of the day might catch on to that's a giant mistake. Like,
I don't know, man. De'Aaron Fox is back, and they're saying that he's going to probably start and play. But I don't think that that's going to affect.
I don't think so either. I don't think so
as
either.
much as anybody,
I really don't. And I think I think he's going to get his little minutes and all that. I mean, Bogdanovich is going to play 30 minutes. That's what he does. He did it when Fox was playing the full minutes. Why wouldn't he play 30 minutes or 28 minutes? 28 to 36 minutes, 28 to 34 more realistically, is totally there. And by the way, there's upside for Bagley to play 30 minutes, which is, I mean, if Bagley plays 30-plus minutes and you don't have him, you might be in some serious trouble. He should be able to massacre this front line. Like, this is a good matchup for these guys. Like, I know Charlotte doesn't play that fast, but they do like play poorly defensively, especially at the big positions. So I really like taking these shots. If I have to prioritize, it's going to be Bogdanovich, then Bagley, then maybe a tiny bit of Hield and a tiny bit of, and maybe not more than a tiny bit. Here's my argument for playing Rashawn Holmes. So what is Sacramento doing? Like, yes, they could use him for their playoff run this year, and they're going to be able to make a run at it at least. But don't you think that he has some trade value, and like wouldn't showing him off, because they're obviously not going to, Bagley's not going anywhere for the next million years if they can do anything about it. Wouldn't this be like maybe you could argue that side of it? You could show off Holmes now because they have other depth in the front court. It's not like they need Holmes. They have Bielitsa with Bagley back, I'm saying. So I don't know. Look, they're probably holding on to him. I'm just throwing it out there. They might be giving him 30 minutes here and there if he's playing well, partially because Luke does play the hot hand thing a little bit, but also I basically see a path for all these guys. So basically, if I'm mass entering tonight, what I would be doing is I would be playing 30 to 40% Bogdanovich, like going really heavy on him. Maybe I would change my mind when we're done with the show because we haven't gone through every game yet, but I would like to get 25 to 30% of Bagley. And I would like to be overweight, probably just barely, probably be in the 15 to 20% range on Holmes. Don't really love everything else, but I don't mind if you want to throw Hield into one lineup. That's just sort of the way I see it playing out for the Sacramento side of the ball. So
you want to do Charlotte, or you want to go back to Indiana?
Let's do Charlotte. We'll go back to Indiana after this. I think that the Charlotte side is pretty basic. It's a pretty much a hard no with you're welcome to take a tournament shot on Devontae Graham. Bridges' price is a little bit up. I still think he's always got upside, but I'm just not going to end up going there today. Marvin Williams is back. Like, Batum is going to play. There's just a lot of bodies. I'm gonna mostly avoid this situation. Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, completely fine with both those guys, but I don't think I'm going to be heavy on either of them. Terry Rozier's price is pretty tempting.
I agree 100% with what you said. If I would play anybody, it would be Graham or Rozier. And the last comment is perfectly reflected in the fact that it's kind of a little bit better projection value-wise than Graham. But, they're both kind of upside type guys if you think about it. I don't know if I'm with you. I don't know if I'm getting there. But, those would be the two guys if I had to pick somebody.
Yeah, there's just never a time where you can't say, like, again, if you're mass multi-entry and you play tournaments, what are our rules? We always play Zach LaVine 10 to 20% if nobody wants him. Otherwise, we might even play him a lot more. We always play, to me, Devontae Graham is one of those guys. The only difference is he's a little bit higher price usually than a guy like Zach LaVine, and he doesn't probably even have they're probably similar ceilings. They both need to make a bunch of threes, and they both can. But I like Graham just anytime you can try and get him at like 10% when he's going to be like 3% owned if you're going to play a bunch of lineups.
So my view on the Indiana pieces, by the way, actually a pretty strong take if you think about it, is so normally I would say the two guys that look pretty decent are Brogdon and Sabonis in this spot. They're the two best values. But on a slate like this where what I'm looking for is kind of high ceiling, high standard deviation type guys to weave into what I think could end up being chalky lineups. Otherwise, I don't think that these are the guys that fit the lineups I want to make today. Again, if you're playing cash and you want to try one of these guys, I mean, they both look okay. Mm-hmm. But for what I'm doing, I don't think they're going to fit this particular.
Who was the other one you said? Brogdon and who?
And Sabonis.
Oh, Sabonis, yeah. Yeah, totally. Like, I think that, why would you pick on players in why would you pick players in one of the toughest matchups when you're getting no discount? The only argument I could say for this game is I have interest in LeBron, whether Davis plays or not. I'm not a big, you don't need to be a stat game watcher. Look at just the numbers though, if you are. LeBron basically never lets you down for this price, except for maybe once or twice here and there, and usually in blowouts. They're probably not going to get blown out. If the games are tight, even reasonably, he's going to put up 55 to 65 with upside probably. Maybe it's not as much upside as you want for a guy who's 10.9, but if you're getting 55 and 6 to 65, I could see if some value opens up later in the day, that becomes like a really, really strong play. The only problem is you might then deal with ownership. Right now, I don't think you'll have much ownership on LeBron, and I think he's the way to go on the Lakers side. I don't mind. Look, you can always play Anthony Davis if he plays, and I assume he will, but he's going to actually be higher owned, in my opinion, than LeBron will by a significant amount, just based on projections throughout the industry. So if that was me, I think that I'm leaning much heavier towards LeBron. I also like the situation better. If the game's close, I know I'm getting LeBron's work down the stretch. Davis will get it too, but we know LeBron's going to have the ball in his hands every single possession and dictate what happens every single possession. The other thing that's sort of baffling to me a little bit about the minutes projections for the Lakers, I don't see why it wouldn't be an exact split tonight between JaVale and Howard. I know they've used Davis a little bit at the 5 sometimes, but he doesn't like to, and they were splitting more minutes earlier. And just at these prices, like JaVale's quietly will put up like a 45 game in these spots sometimes. And just for the prices, I'm just going to mention them. They're wild card GPP plays, both he and Howard, but they're certainly in play for GPPs just because they're so cheap. And if there's one other really cheap guy that I'm going to definitely have some exposure to, look, Avery Bradley is 3K, stone minimum. I could see him playing as many as 26, 28 minutes. It could probably with even some upside on that. But he's probably going to play 24 minutes, 26 minutes. I just think you can take a shot on a guy at 3K when there's no value yet or no extreme value. That's why I mentioned those guys. When the real value opens up, if it does, I think you can sort of scratch this stuff off. But I do think that they're in play if no other value opens up and you want to play LeBron.
And one real just, again, this is maybe my brain is all fried or whatever, but I do remember in the last couple of years, there were a couple of games where LeBron was at Indiana and he was not getting owned because of a matchup issue or something like that. Indiana played slow. And he always, for whatever reason, seemed when he was in Indiana to kind of ramp it up. I just remember a couple of games like that where people were off him because of an at Indiana matchup that he ended up smashing. I don't remember why or what.
So this is not like a narrative thing exactly, but I'll tell you part of the reason why I take that is, there was been a few teams LeBron's had to get through in his playoff career. And I think that extra stuff matters because the fans, it matters to the fans. So Indy remembers those playoff series that went 7 games and 6 games when they had with the Heat, when they had Paul George, who was the young up and comer. So there's a lot of intent. There's energy in the arena there. There's a history. So I don't know. To me, a guy like LeBron, you could use that as a little bit of an extra narrative tool. And also the games tend to be close in Indiana. So when games are close, LeBron tends to put up monster games.
Yeah.
So it's pretty logical that would be the case, even though it doesn't, saying just Indiana in general might not make sense to people. It's probably has something to do with the games being close and the fact that there is some history with him there, which you get the crowd going on you. And these guys play 82 games a year. Those little extra things that motivate you make a big difference. Partly why this Laker team is so good on the road is this is what happens when you're a great team. You get everybody's best shot and you get all the crowds and everybody's after you. And every game becomes a much more playoff-like atmosphere for the Lakers than it is for Sacramento and Charlotte, let's say. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right. So I think we've covered that one.
Okay, moving ahead, and I'm honestly not sure which of the next 2 games would be Bobby's favorite, because I thought it would be a 2-game slate, and he asked me kind of half sarcastic, what's the other game? So I am curious. So let me just kind of approach this in my way. So
I know what it is.
So the next 2 games are to me dead equal as far as my desire to stack them and to go after them. They both fit the exact same mold of having high total games that lending itself to guys projecting really well, and also possible overtime big and things like that. So the first one is the Atlanta-New York game, and I'm going to be all over this, and I'm just going to go over who I like. It should become as no surprise. Assuming Herter is in, so for now, I'm assuming Herter is in. So on the Atlanta side, Trae Young, is going to be the top play of this game of this team. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Trae Young and the next 3.5 guys: Herter, Hunter, Parker, to some degree Reddish, but mostly Herter, Hunter, and Parker. What I'll end up doing is playing Trae Young with Hunter, Trae Young with Parker, maybe Trae Young with Reddish. I don't know if I'm going to do Trae Young with 2 of the other kind of shooters or whatever, but I might play 3 of them. I don't know if I'll play Herter and Hunter. If I had to prioritize, I guess Hunter would be my favorite of those guys, but that's what I'm going to do on the Atlanta side. And on the New York side, I don't know what they were doing, but RJ Barrett, they priced at 4,500. I do think that there's the best explanation is that it's a misprint, that they meant to do 5,400 or something like that.
I don't think so. I actually think that it's based on just recent performance, but
I don't know. But in any case, to me, I don't say lock or whatever, but even in terms of what I want to do here, 5 of these Atlanta guys. So on the Knicks side, I do think that the coach is completely, coaching legitimate basketball right now. We know where the usage is going. We know what they're trying to do. And I'm going to play R.J. Barrett. I'm going to play Julius Randle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to – the next 3 guys are a little bit more – I don't want to say speculative because I think they're all really good. But R.J. Barrett and Randle would be the first 2 I'll put in. Then Marcus Morris, like it or not, has been, a real big part of what they're doing. And he would be a guy to throw in. And then I don't know what I would do about the Mitchell Robinson thing. Like I get nervous about him because I do see Portis get minutes. I do see Taj get minutes. But I'd probably do maybe something with Mitchell Robinson also. The one guy that's kind of the lesser projected guy who might be the least owned of all these guys that I do want to take kind of a stance on to have his minutes upgraded from where projections are is going to be Elf Payton. I think that he's 100% established himself as the point guard here for a while, and I think they're going to start him. I think they're going to play him like a real starter, and I think the 26-minute projection or whatever that is has nothing but upside from there. And against Trae Young defense, I think it's a smash spot for him up and beyond the projections also. So I'm going to do a 3x3. I'm going to do a 3x2. I'm going to be just kind of all over it. It just fits exactly the mold of the types of things I like to do. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get away with it as far as ownership goes without making some concessions elsewhere. But this is one of the 2 games that I'm going to be going after.
Yeah, I mean, that makes plenty of sense. There's a lot to like. I get it. So here's my counter to the Trae Young thing. So I just want to point out that Trae Young is 9,900. LeBron James is 10.5. Trae Young currently, we have projected most throughout the industry. I think he might even be as much as 3 times what LeBron's owned. He's 600 cheaper. If you even just look at game logs or even average fantasy points over the last 10 games, where is Trae Young has shown less upside, less consistency, less paying off value, and he's going to be 3 times his own. I get the matchup. I don't see the matchups as being all bad for LeBron for the reasons we stated because the close game factor. But I just want to point that out, that I think it's a little bit of a mistake when everybody in the industry goes one way because they see something with a matchup. And it happened the other night with DeAndre Hunter. Like, this guy was 1% owned at 4.3 after putting up, what did he put up, 48 the game before? And he put up 33. Like, he was great. I love DeAndre Hunter more than anybody on the Atlanta side tonight, followed by Jabari and then Trae Young. If I was stacking the game, I think it makes sense to take Trae Young, and I do really like the Knicks pieces. So I'm just going to take a stance on R.J. Barrett and play him 75 to 80%. Like, I don't care. I don't know that I'll have a big lineup without him in it unless I just sort of want – I could make an argument for fading him. I just don't think I want to. I think that he puts up enough to where you might actually absolutely need him tonight. This is a great matchup for him. Like, if he was 6K, he would be 100% in my player pool at 20% probably. You know what I mean? And he's 4.5.
Yeah.
So I love him. I love what you said about the Knicks. I know you know what's happening with them, so I appreciate it. You did talk me much more onto Elf Payton. I was already into him a little bit, but that's a guy who I'm looking at. The number 2 guy, though, for the Knicks for me is definitely Julius Randle. I think Julius Randle is another guy who could put up 50 in this spot, and you could see multiple 50s. So maybe you run a Barrett Randle on one side, and then on the other side, you can run, even if you just want to run a Hunter or Jabari, it's a good game environment for all these guys, or Herter, Trae Young. I do want to point out that Jabari's, his minutes seem to fluctuate, but again, the guy can put up 60. Like, he has an extremely high ceiling. So yeah, I like it. I just happen to love the next game we're going to talk about. But I do think that the most owned player in my player pool, I can't see how it's not going to be R.J. Barrett.
The one thing I will also mention and counter my own player, Trae Young, is something that I don't know if you're the first to pick up on it, but certainly you were the first to alert me to it, and I've noticed it every game now, is there seems to be almost a cheat code now for playing against Trae Young, where teams are just starting to completely double team him on all these pick and rolls. And it's made life kind of difficult for him. And, it's no secret that if we know this, then everybody knows this. And it's possible that that's what teams just all decide to do against him until further notice, which on the one hand does restrict Trae Young's production a little bit. Yet on the other hand, if you could want to play guys like Herter and Hunter and guys that are spotting up from 3 as a result of this, it probably increases their upside a little bit.
Yeah, I also want to point out that the Trae Young is going to be a little different. Like guys like Bembry, Herter, who was only playing a few minutes before, like when he had a 20 minutes restriction. Even Reddish has become more aggressive. So has Hunter. But all of a sudden, when you get like Crab back in there, I do think it takes away a little bit of some of Trae Young's shots. Like it's a different type of player than a Bembry is, who's going to try and be more aggressive offensively. So you take Bembry out of there, and I don't think that it helps Trae Young. Anyway, these are just my takes.
Hey, can I give one more?
Yeah.
It's not even a take. It's just something to keep in mind, and maybe not now, but next like couple of months. As I know this has been the case for the last like 3 years, but eventually when it gets into the second part of the season, Vince Carter is going to be given minutes in like every stadium. You know what I mean? In his quote unquote last run in stadiums. So I'm not saying to start playing him, but it is going to start eating into minutes of some of these Atlanta guys. Now I don't know if this is last game match. Probably not. There's probably another one, but it's definitely. I'm just going to keep it on in my radar a little bit before I go crazy with some of these other Atlanta guys. That the Vince Carter thing. I mean, they do play him. So as it gets down to that time of the year where it's his last trip to these stadiums, and they basically have to run him out there for minutes, I just want to just throw it out there.
I think it's a good point. Something definitely to keep an eye on.
Okay. Let's go ahead to Brooklyn, New York, and this is my second favorite game. It's literally my 1A, 1B. So let me. I guess I'll just go through it first. You know, for all the reasons why you'd think it's a good matchup, it's a good matchup. You have two fast-paced teams in a very fast-paced environment, a close spread, and it's just about as much nirvana as you can get for a good old-fashioned game stack and going all over it. So on the Brooklyn side of things, I mean, you know, it's not a guy that we play all as much as a lot of people do, but Dinwiddie's projecting through the freaking roof in this spot. So I would start my stacks with him just because he have the ball more than anybody else. And then what I'm going to do, and I thought about this a lot, with the next four guys that I have, which are Prince, Allen, Temple, and Harris, all of whom just kind of rate similarly, what I got to make sure I do is do this right. So I think I have no problem with Allen in lineups with anybody, right? I go Dinwiddie, Allen, whoever, but I don't want to play Temple and Harris together. They play kind of a similar role. And I don't even know if I want to play Turry and Prince in the same lineup with either of those guys either. I know he's a little more whatever than those two guys, but from what I've seen of him, he's more of kind of been shooting a lot and in the corner and doing whatever that I'm used to him being. So I just got to be careful if I am going to just go bananas with this game that I group these things right and I get the right correlation, at least with my approach. On the New Orleans side, sort of similarly, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, all like 6 guys, all of whom I think you could play. I'm supposed to read them off. There's Drew Holiday, Lonzo Ball, who's now probably going to be starting because J.J. Redick is probably not going to play, which makes Lonzo Ball just ridiculous. Favors is back. He's in play. Ingram's in play. Hart's in play. And Jackson Hayes is in play. So, again, I have no problem stacking the crap out of these guys. Again, I have to be very careful. So I have no problem with Ball being with anybody because he's going to be, the point guard. I would certainly not want to play Favors and Hayes together. I'd probably make a group where Max 1 Favors and Hayes. I also probably I would like to make a Max 1 group of Holiday and Ingram, but that might be a little bit too cute. So I might not go crazy.
Yeah, there's a path they can both get there.
Yeah. But I think that is a way to, I don't want to say separate yourself, but it's a way to distinguish yourself to having your lineups better by just at least not just saying I want a minimum of four Pelicans. Because if you do that, you might end up with Hayes and Favors, and that's probably not, the optimal way to go.
Yeah. I agree. So this is my game. On the Brooklyn side of it, I'm going to play a lot of Dinwiddie. I don't care what the ownership is. I like the spot too much. It's true. We don't play a bunch of Dinwiddie since because everybody flocked to him, and we know when to jump off of somebody when everybody's on him. And this is a spot where I don't care. It's a good match. It's too good a matchup. And I'm going to play when he was 8,100 and 40% owned against the Jazz on a full slate. That seemed like crazy to me. I love Trae and Prince tonight. I think this is a great environment for him as well. I think he's safe. I think you could play him in cash if you wanted to. I think same with Dinwiddie. I think those are both cash game plays with tournament upside, but also I like the other side of the game so much it's hard not to play some of that. And then the lower owned guys, Jared Allen, I'm going to be probably double the field on him. I really like Jared Allen in this spot. I think he could actually have one of his big, monster games. It's interesting. Like if DeAndre Jordan was cheaper, I would take a shot on him as a pivot, instead of Allen, but he's just too expensive for me to really take seriously. And then a little bit of Harris, but mostly I'm interested on the New Orleans side. A little bit of Harris, a little bit of Temple, who's another guy I think you could probably even play in cash if you wanted to. But I really think that this Pelican side is going to go nuts. The issue I'm having is that I'm building a lot of lineups with all of Lonzo, Drew, and Ingram so far, and I don't think that's right. Like what we saw was when Lonzo was starting, it hurt Drew's fantasy production. I'm a little worried about that. So I might have to split that up a little bit. I also don't mind playing those guys or two of those three with Josh Hart or Kenrich Williams. No one's going to play Kenrich Williams, and I think he might even get a little bit of a boost here. Like, look, the minutes are pretty secure with him. I feel good about that. Jackson Hayes and Favors feel like speculative tournament plays to me, so I don't like that they're going to have decent ownership, but I probably will have some exposure to both, but mostly it's going to be the main guys, and then I'm throwing Josh Hart right in there. I think he is a really, really good play in all formats, and on both FanDuel and DraftKings. That's sort of where I'm at. It's going to be heavy stacking in this game with pieces from other games for me. I understand that you're going to be eating some of the chalk on these kinds of slates, but I think there's enough places you can differentiate elsewhere and get some low-owned guys, that maybe don't make sense with the stack. And then even in this stack, like throwing in the Kenrich and the Josh Hart in the same lineup or something like that, that's going to differentiate you. You know what I mean? I don't think Terrain Prince is going to be – he'll be owned, but he's not going to be like 40%. None of these guys are going to be at 40%, but they're going to be in the 20s and 30s, most of them, maybe even as much as 40 for like Dinwiddie. But I like the game too much, so it's really hard for me just to avoid it. I'm going to stick with it, and most of my stacks are going to have this game, and even though it will be somewhat chalky, I'm just going to have to try and find a way to do it more creatively. If Lonzo doesn't start, I like him. I love that his ownership's going to be lower, so I'll make him more of a priority.
Well, the only way he's not going to start is if Redick plays, right? I mean,
well, no, he could not start. If they could start. They could start Jackson or Walker or Drew at the one and Hard at the. Like they could do a lot of different things if they wanted to. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the starting lineup will definitely affect my decision making. But I want to play Lonzo either way. I'm just going to look at him as more of a priority when he's going to be lower owned, which I don't think is going to happen if he's starting.
The more I'm looking at, I'm looking at some ownership projections or whatever, and it's early, but these some of these can't be. I just find it difficult to believe that RJ Barrett isn't going to be just by far the most owned player on the slate. But maybe.
I think we'll see that as the day wears on. Anyway, that's what I got for this game. I think that you're making a mistake if you don't play at least a couple pieces in this game.
Yep. Okay, Orlando, Utah again. So I'm not dismissing these games because I want to find something, if I can, to make the rest of this stuff work. So first in the Orlando game, the only guy who projects decently, and this is really just not the way I want to do it, is Vooch on the Orlando side. Imagine like second game back against Gobert. I don't know. That's rough business, I guess. And then the other two guys are our friends, Isaac and Aaron Gordon, I suppose. But I don't know. I need someone to really convince me of that. And on the Utah side, I guess you could always play Donovan Mitchell. That would be a guy I could possibly use. I don't think I want to go Gobert again. I don't think that's the type of guy I want as far as a one-off. And these other guys, Bojan, Bogdanovic, and Conley's back, and I don't know. The only guy I would think about is Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if this is the type of game environment where I'm going to get up ceiling out of these guys, and that's kind of what I want if I want to pick from a game like this. Somebody with some kind of ceiling. I don't know. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I have very little interest in this game. It's really hard for me to justify a lot of these plays. I do think that Vooch at his price, if he's going to play 30 minutes even against Gobert, is interesting. And I think Gobert is interesting, but I'm not going to prioritize anyone. I wouldn't fault you for playing Gobert, Mitchell, or Vooch, but I'm just not going to be that interested. Again, if no value opens up that you want something really cheap, No, I wouldn't even do Royce O'Neal on this slate. Like, I just am not going to touch anything in this, to be honest with you, hardly. Like, I mean, maybe I'll have one or two pieces, not two. I'll have one piece here and there, but it's going to be a little bit of Gobert, a little bit of Vooch, and that's pretty much it. And Mitchell.
Okay, so last game is Phoenix against the not the Chargers, against the Clippers. And I guess the first thing we have to look at again is if Booker is going to be playing. I don't, questionable. I don't know where he's at. What I'm looking at, presuming he's playing. If he doesn't play, I guess it's back to Mikal Bridges again. I couldn't imagine why we wouldn't. Exact same. But the thing it's okay. So DeAndre Ayton is playing. I mean, 25 minutes, something like that. That reduces value of some of these other guys, I guess. Also, it just doesn't look like anybody on Phoenix. It really doesn't look like I want to play anybody. On the Clipper side is interesting because, Kawhi and Paul George, right? They project okay, and they project for a good amount of raw points. And like Kawhi, for example, falls within some of these builds that I have. You know what I mean? As that guy, like you see, like just this build over here that has like a whole bunch of Nets, whatever, or Knicks. This has Nets and Knicks in it, whatever. Actually, it's got Barrett and then a bunch of Nets and Pelicans. Kawhi just kind of fits here, right? And so if you want to put Kawhi in, he could be a guy for raw points who projects well, is probably going to get there to put in there. And you like, and likewise, just because I see on this other build, you can put Anthony Davis in a situation like that. So guys like Kawhi, again, I don't know how he's kind of not going to be low owned though. So it's not really, you're not adding that much differentiation by playing him. You know what I mean? But he does kind of fit in, and he's probably a good cash game play, I guess, if you play that kind of thing, along with all these other values from these other games. So he's fine. I don't think that he's going to be what wins me the tournament. You know what I mean? It's going to have to be something else.
Yeah, that's the thing. These guys are all low owned. Taking a shot on like Montrezl Harrell, who's going to be really low owned. That might not be the worst idea in the world. I like Kawhi and Paul George. I just don't, again, they're going to be high owned, so that's not the pivots that I'm necessarily looking at making so much. What I do like doing is maybe playing one of them with somebody from the other side in a speculative way. So, for example, like you play Kawhi and
Rubio.
If Booker's out, I'm trying to figure out a way to do it financially. Like it's a little tricky. If Booker is out, which we don't know, we might hear it after lock. So I don't mind the idea. Like, why not play Booker? I know this sounds crazy, but like you can play Booker at 10 to 15% with, I guess there's not enough value on the other side. I'm trying to find an exact match where I could switch over to Kawhi or PG and one of the cheap.
Try Mikal Bridges though, right? If he doesn't.
Yeah, no. You play Mikal Bridges. You take a shot with, but you take a shot with all these guys is what I think. And then look, you still have outs even if they don't get there, including Cam Johnson, by the way. I actually think Cam Johnson might be my preferred play if Booker were out. But I think you just take some shots and then you might have to eat a little bit. Like, look, it might suck if Booker does play, but even still, it's not like these guys absolutely can't get there. And I think this is a good place to differentiate because no one's going to own them. We're going to assume Booker plays. And the truth is we don't know. I mean, after lock, it would be a totally different story. I still am not that interested in this game, but I like the cheap pieces, especially Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges. And I like Dario Saric no matter what. I like him on FanDuel a lot more than I do on DraftKings because of the price. And I found that I needed a 5,400 power forward. But I think these minutes projections for him are just way, way off. I don't really understand where they're coming from. He's had one game below 30 minutes in his last 6. I understand there's been some injuries, but like, why are we going to assume all of a sudden he's not going to play 30 minutes? Doesn't correlate at all with Booker. So anyway, that's just my own personal take. And then, yeah, I mean, you play a little bit of those Clippers guys, but it's not that exciting. It's probably not the place I want to go most. The thing I keep getting back to is maybe I think getting the low ownership from the Sacramento, Charlotte, especially the Sacramento side, obviously, or playing LeBron might be the good lower owned way to go to go along with the stacks that we like.
There was one other guy I wanted to ask you about. I forgot from another game that just because you seem to have your pulse on this guy more than anybody. He projects like crap. He's going to be 2% owned, but what? Just a random guy. What do you think of T.J. Warren today?
Yeah, I have a little tiny bit of him just because I think that like maybe you play him 5 or 10% or something, but just because the ceiling with the the number of minutes he plays at 5K. Same thing with Jeremy Lamb. Like you could play them. It's just not a great matchup for either of them. I liked the matchup better the other day for Warren than I do today, but certainly not a terrible piece. Yeah, I don't mind him. I'm looking at my top ownerships here, and I actually feel okay to be pretty much. I mean, again, I might have a lot of chalky plays, but I've got guys in the 20s and 30s that I think that I would want to. I would feel pretty good about.
Well, if you for real are going to have 30-40%, either Bogdan or Bagley or guys like that, I mean, that's probably enough. I mean, those guys. I mean, especially considering what their price is. I mean,
what about Elfrid Payton too?
Yeah. I mean, like you look at, I'm looking at Bogdan. I mean, he's 5,300. I mean, who's going to play him over Barrett? Well, actually, you probably play them both, so whatever.
Well, but then it gets weird though, because then you can't play. Then how do you play Lonzo and Drew? Like, I mean, it just gets interesting.
So maybe that's the idea. I don't know. But like you said, maybe none of you guys are that. I think RJ Barrett's going to be huge chop. I'm with you. I don't know how I can get away from it. That's going to be very, very difficult.
Well, especially because you like the run backs too, and I like him okay. I just don't like him quite as much as you do.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's the way to go. I mean, I'll real quick before we get out of here, I'm going to read my just like current where people own. RJ Barrett's in a class of his own, followed by I actually have, if Lonzo's starting, I think Brandon Ingram is the better play between he and Holiday. If Lonzo is not starting, I think Holiday is the better play between he and Ingram. They're very close. I think
say that one more time.
If Lonzo is starting, I prefer Ingram over Holiday. Lonzo will take away more from Holiday than he will from Ingram.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean he has to. Like they could still both get there. It's still, I like them both. I mean, I'm 45 versus 40%. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a huge difference. But Ingram, Ball, then Ball, Dinwiddie, Holiday on their own tier, basically, followed by Taurean Prince, Bogdanovich, Julius Randle, Jared Allen, LeBron James, Marvin Bagley. Those guys I have about the same. And then the slightly less guys are Josh Hart, DeAndre Hunter, Elf Payton, Jabari Parker, Trae Young, Mitchell Robinson, Kenrich Williams, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right now for me, it's two builds, both one with stacking the crap out of Atlanta, New York, filtering in with whatever low-owned guys I dream up. One with stacking the crap out of Brooklyn, New Orleans, filling in with other low-owned guys I could dream up. And probably one with kind of mixing and matching for both those games. That's going to be harder because you probably maybe take the lower-owned guys from both of those games if possible. But who's going to be low-owned? I don't know. But that's definitely the way I'm doing it. And again, I'm going to be pretty on the lookout for just kind of anything I can come up with outside of those games to filter in with those games to make it work.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at now. Again, I'm afraid of what's going to be announced after we log off. Could be anything.
Right. While the video's uploading to YouTube, it's all of a sudden 5 new pieces.
And then AD gets ruled out, and then we're off to the races.
Well, I feel good about tonight. I'm not playing this crazy volume that I have on certain days, but I do have a good amount more interest than I initially did in this slate. Why don't you get us out of here on any thoughts that you have?
You know what we forgot to do?
What's that?
FanDuel.
Okay, well, let's take a quick look at your FanDuel build, and I'll talk about mine.
Or do you want to do a separate one? Okay.
No, let's just do it. I think it makes sense.
So, unfortunately, FanDuel, I just built this pretty quickly. My approach to the games are no different. You know what I mean? I still love the same games. So these are just kind of just plays that I kind of just threw in here. But again, what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't play for, I guess it's 5 New Orleans guys like in the same lineup. Although that's one before. That's one before. But I think you're spending a lot of salary to do that.
Wait, how did you enter that?
I didn't enter it.
Oh, you did? Yeah, because it's got 5 minutes. You can't have 5 players from one team.
It wasn't going to let me.
Yeah, I was like.
Don't you also have to have guys from 3 teams also?
Yeah.
This is Sacramento.
Yeah, it can't all be from one game.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to. Yeah. So like basically like that's not so far off of what my build is. I'm high on. I like Josh Hart over here. Obviously Prince. We talked about Holiday, Ingram, Ball, Dinwiddie, and then I just think you can change yourself at center. Like Miles Turner is going, and he did it. He put up a nice game the other day. I know this is not a great situation, but he might have to play more minutes because the Lakers play a couple bigs. Miles Turner is 6K. He's kind of an interesting unowned guy on FanDuel for me. I like to play the unowned centers, as Brooke Lopez will tell you last night. And I like Dario Saric over here. I like Jared Allen at power forward at 6,500. I feel like you can do a nice New Orleans or Atlanta build with those guys. Get a little bit creative. Instead of that, maybe you want to throw in one of the Bagleys or Bogdanoviches. I'm totally good with all that. But I actually really I really like these guys. And the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to realize no one's going to play Bogdanovic. I think I might need to prioritize that. Anyway, that's sort of where I'm at. With FanDuel, I feel like the builds, for once, are actually fairly similar to DraftKings. That makes sense to you?
I'm trying to look at this. Any guy that's particularly much stronger, I just don't see it. I will say that worth mentioning that RJ Barrett is not even remotely the same kind of lock he is on FanDuel. He's like 6,200.
Yeah, you don't need to play RJ Barrett over here.
Right, which is even more kind of ridiculous.
You could play him. I would suggest if you play RJ Barrett you definitely do it as part of a mini stack. That would be my recommendation on FanDuel.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
The hot take before we get out of here.
I'll tell you the final take. It's like ridiculous. So I was all ready to go with my hat. Okay. But Mrs. Sheets says, if you're going to go and you're going to wear like a collared shirt like this, you really can't wear the hat. Okay. So I got to get like my whole like DFS kind of outfit but I do want to show you the hat that we were going to wear. Okay. We were going to wear the LFG hat. Okay?
I want one of those. I like that hat. Where did that come from?
I had this made for when I coach for my team. When I get fully, I got to balance all this out. I got to figure out what to do. But maybe I'll wear the Linko Ping hockey jersey with the LFG hat, and I'll be really full back in the artist formerly known as Sheets brand from poker. We'll see. We'll see.
Sounds good, man. Hey, well, it's good doing the show with you. Fun slate. Any questions, feel free to hit us up on Twitter. Give us the like, the subscribe on the YouTube videos. Really appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. And let's make some money tonight, guys. We are out of here.